What up, is Marcus Dynasty Dads? I figured let's have a couple tips here after Memorial Day weekend. Things that I've already been seeing that I made mistakes so many times early on when it came into Dynasty that I just didn't understand certain things. And the first things that I way overdid was the offseason hype. And we hear this with Bryan Edwards. We hear this with so many different players of, oh my goodness, look at this player. And then they sometimes they don't even sometimes make the roster. You hear, oh, this 7th round running back, this 6th round wide receiver. You get the Victor Cruzes. You get the players that sometimes will hit. But majority of the time, and in fact almost like 95, 99% of the time, they end up becoming a bust or they end up not performing to any type of level. And this goes into the preseason form as well. We're in June right now, or almost into June. We're 2 days away from June. But we're getting closer to June here when we start hearing these off-season, this camp hype and stuff like that. Take it with a grain of salt and realistically know that even if it's bad news, honestly, sometimes bad news is something that you just have to erase from your mind. If I hear things, gosh, what have I heard? I've heard things like Justin Jefferson is being out-snapped by, I can't remember who it was at the time. I'm trying to think, it wasn't Laquan at the time. Maybe it was KJ Osborne. It was Justin Jefferson is not the second wide receiver on Minnesota, and he becomes the best wide receiver to start a career ever. And so you hear all these things negatively and positively, and just take it with a grain of salt. Please know that the offseason hype is not going to change our rankings drastically. So just know that. Number 2 is if you can trade with a contending team for draft picks. I mean, if you're a team that is trying to rebuild, we always try to give some rebuilding advice. Look for their 2025 picks. Look for as far in the future as you possibly can. 2 years can change everything. And there was a team that actually had Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley. They were a team that was dominant in Dynasty. And in one quick 12-month span, they went from dominant to irrelevant. And all of a sudden, if you had that pick, which a different team did, they all of a sudden had the 102, or you can get a 103 or a 101 that looked to be like a 111, 112, 110, somewhere around that range. And so get these picks from some of these contending teams down the road. I mean, if they are willing to kick the block to 2025, 2026, I don't know how long some of these leagues are able to trade draft picks, but that is huge. Do that. Go after some of these contending teams and get those picks way in the future. Even if it's second and third rounders, you can end up getting some steal the deals. Because and I've done this too. I've done this actually multiple times. In one league, I actually did this. It seemed like I got lucky per se, but I did this 3 consecutive years where I had a top 3 pick. That wasn't even mine, and I had my own pick. So I ended up having 103, and then I think it was 102, 103 one year, and then the next year I had 102 and 108, which was my own pick, and then I was 111, I missed out on the championship, and I had still 102. And so again, it's like when you have those types of picks, that can just change the drastic part of your future. I went from a team that was rebuilding, destruction, into reloading, getting ready, and then all of a sudden I was contending and had ammo and weapons. And then all of a sudden I won the championship the year after. And so that's how you do it in that couple year stretch. So know that you can trade with some of these contending teams. 2 things about utilizing the future, or utilizing now to your advantage. 1, draft picks. Draft picks are way overvalued now. They always will be. They always have been. This is the time of the year where draft picks are way overvalued. And then when we get to the trade deadline, they're undervalued because you just want players. So right now, teams don't want players. They want to cut down their rosters. They want to acquire these diamonds in the rough. But draft picks are so valuable. These second and third rounders and fourth rounders you can get something. You can get you can get players that you can put on your roster versus players that you're going to end up cutting in 2 months anyways, unless you have a taxi squad. So utilize that. Utilize knowing that picks are going to get you a lot of times more than what you can get for that player. And so a lot of times I've been having, again, these 104s, 105s, 108s. I have 112 in a league, and I'm willing to shop and sell if I can get a better player than what I can get at 112. And a lot of times I'm going to be able to get a better player than what I'm going to get from a Quentin Johnston or a Zay Flowers. Like, yes, those are tantalizing prospects, but likely I'm going to be able to get something better. And then the last one is for utilizing now is get those older players. You can get a lot of older players for cheap cheap prices. People will start seeing the near end and they want to just abandon ship. And yes, Dalvin Cook looks like mostly you want to abandon ship. Adam Thielen is somebody that you want to abandon ship. I'm trying to think of other players that we can get. DeAndre Hopkins, getting to the point of getting older where we want to be potentially saying, I don't know. Do we start abandoning that route as well? You get other players as well that you're going to have. A lot of these running backs that are Zeke is, I guess, a free agent, but you could probably get Zeke for very little, and he doesn't have a team. But what happens if he goes to a team that gets a running back cut or a running back that gets hurt? All of a sudden, Zeke becomes relevant and something that is more valuable than having a second-round flyer on a player that is probably not even going to see the field very often. So utilize getting those older players now. Now, it's not the players that are just descending. It's the players that have already lost a ton of value. And that is the biggest key. So if you believe that Dalvin Cook and Zeke and Derrick Henry, maybe has he lost enough value? Maybe he is a buy then. And some of these running backs are very tricky because when they fall off, a lot of times they don't come back. But if you're especially a contending team, that is where you want to buy some of these older players to fill in your depth of your roster. Because if you have some mid to later picks, that is where you can start utilizing these picks to help push you for one more year. If you can get one more year, one more contending chance, sometimes that's all that matters to get you that championship. And that's what we're here for, is championships, not just to finish second, third, fourth. Like, that's just no fun. You need depth as you go through. There's very few teams that I've seen that I have had that have had no depth that have won a championship. It's just injuries happen, and so you need the depth. You have to have it. Or else you end up starting players like me, Zay freaking Jones, and needing 3 touchdowns out of him. Oh, wait, that actually happened. I can't believe that still happened. And so, but likely you're going to need something like that, a miracle to happen for you to continue on in the playoffs or championship. And sometimes you're just on the other end of that too. All right, this is Marcus, Dynasty Dads. Well, peace out. We'll see you here in a day or two. We'll be talking some more draft time.